In this video, we're going to look at how you use memory techniques to speed up language learning. So often when you're learning a new language, you've got long lists of vocabulary that you have to somehow cram into your brain. Maybe you've got a test tomorrow, you need to do some serious cramming, or maybe you're trying to learn words for the longer run. So we're going to look at that today with these sample Spanish fruits and vegetables and look at how you deal with masculine and feminine. We're also going to touch on how you might use these techniques to remember information for the longer run. It's actually going to be the topic of my next video in depth, which is about using spaced repetition to move what you've learned quickly into your long-term memory. So memory techniques are, look, they're a great way of remembering short-term information, much faster than rote learning. They tend to have a much better retention the day after, so less drop-off than if you're just doing rote learning. But regardless of how you first remembered information, if you do want to remember it for the long term, you need to do some sort of spaced repetition. So we'll touch on that, go into it more in the next video. I'm not a Spanish speaker, so my pronunciation might not be perfect. I've basically I've Googled, fruits and vegetables from Spain, and then I've sorted the data. So that's the first thing you want to do whenever you're learning anything using memory techniques, is you basically want to organize the information. You go, would these be better in some sort of order or separating out this information? In this case, I'm separating it out. So these are all feminine fruits and vegetables. The reason I'm doing that is I'm going to put them in a memory palace that reminds me that they're feminine. So I'm going to choose a place of someone I know who I actually think is a very feminine person. And that information is going to sit in that house. Now that really helps me for later on down the track when I'm trying to, pull the word from somewhere. I'm trying to remember, is this masculine? Is this feminine? I might not remember the original image that I made anymore, but your brain, you'll find, actually looks in that place. And by looking in that place, you go, oh, that was a feminine place. So that can be a really good trick. You can actually use memory techniques without using a memory palace as well. We might touch onto that a little bit too. So we've got our words. First thing is, you want to look at, with this information, do you want to be able to spell it? Do you want to be able to say it? What is it that you need to be able to learn in this instance? For these words, I'm going to say, look, we want to be able to speak Spanish. We're not going in for any written competitions. So it's all about how it's pronounced. So I've obviously gone and Googled also, how are these pronounced, and I've written them in there. And so step number one is, we're choosing a memory palace. Like I said, I've chosen someone that I know that's going to remind me that it's feminine. And on their front steps, I want to place this word, apple. So apple is pronounced manzana. Again, apologies if you're Spanish and you go, but basically, what we want to do now is go, all right, manzana. When you think of manzana, what does it remind you of? Those separate components. Man sounds a little bit like man to me. It's not quite pronounced the same, like man versus man. Sa, the first thing I think of is someone I know called Sarah. And then na is Australian for nah, no, basically nah, mate. We all go nah. Your association is going to be different to mine, I imagine. We're all very different people. So if you're following along, choose a palace, pause the video when you need to, and make your own images and associations. But mine, the first thing that springs to my mind for this is there's a man, he's under an umbrella. I'm just doing that to try and get the sound. And I can't quite see him properly. So he's on the steps of the house of this palace I've chosen. Lift up the umbrella to try and see underneath a little bit to see if Sarah is there. And then I go, nah, it's not Sarah. Instead, suddenly I see it's a big apple man. So that's just to remind me, with a little bit of repetition, a little bit going over, it's man, Sarah, nah, for apple. I'm then going to the doorway, and at the doorway, I'm going to put a big orange. Now, I do the same thing here, so we go na, ran, ha. Now, ha at the end, straight away, I think of like ha in Taekwondo, like ha, kicking your foot up or something like that. Na, again, I think na. Ran reminds me a little bit of run, to run. So I'm going to see this big orange at the door, and if I sort of troubleshoot that and try to put it all together, I get an orange, I'm going to stab a big straw into it, I'm going to take a big drink of the orange straight from the straw, and this orange comes to life and it goes, nah. And it goes running, and then I'm still trying to drink this orange, and so then it goes ha at me. Narangha, narangha. I think that will stick. I'm then going to go inside, and there's a sideboard. And on her sideboard, we want something for strawberry. So strawberry is fresa. Now, the first thing that springs to my mind is a freezer. But freezer and fresa, they don't quite sound the same. So I'm going to get a friend I know called Freya. I'm going to put her in a freezer, poor Freya, on the sideboard. So the sideboard's there, there's a freezer in it, Freya's in it, and she's got a big plate of strawberries. So fresa, fresa, fresa. With a little bit of repetition, that will probably work. So with all of these techniques, you want to keep sort of going back to the beginning of your palace and go, okay, can I see what apple is? There's a man, sana. And you want to kind of sort of just run through them quickly every now and then. You will have errors, that's normal. So you will have moments where you go, oh, that didn't quite work. You might need to adjust your image a little bit, or you might just need just a little bit of repetition. I know when I first wrote this up and I thought about fresa, I had a freezer and I was saying freezer, and then I listened to it again and I was like, fresa. I was like, oh, okay, I need to change this image. Moving on to lettuce. On her couch, I'm going to have a lettuce there. And lettuce is la. Oh, I should point out all of these are la because la is the feminine beginning for these words. So when we do begin with any sort of learning, it's good to kind of pay attention to those things, you know, noticing that they're all la. They also all end in the sound as well, except for one. So that's also a hint of whether it's masculine or feminine for you. But we get to lettuce and we've got la lechuga. So what does that remind me of? Lechuga, I think of, it reminds me of a lot of things. A lot of words start with le. It also reminds me of French, like le bon. But really, because we're talking about lettuce, I'm just going to go with the lettuce. So le chu reminds me of to chew. So I'm going to put my head down and chew on the lettuce. And I'm enjoying this lettuce until I get a big taste of gala, which is it's a iconic bird in Australia. So I'm biting that, and I'm biting on the head of a gala, which makes me stop chewing it. You might not know a gala, but something else might spring to mind, like Lady Gaga or a Gaga baby with a dummy or something like that. So it's whatever association is going to work for you. But I think that's going to work for me. I see a lettuce and I start to say lettuce, realise I'm in Spain, chew it, get the gala, lechuga. Last one is cauliflower. Now I'm moving to her, there's a carpet there and I think I'll use that next to the couch. And cauliflower is la, cauliflower. Now the first part sounds like collie to me, like cauliflower. It's a little bit different because it's collie rather than collie. So it sounds a little bit like call, but I think with a little bit of repetition, a little bit of care, that's going to be okay. Floor sounds like the floor, or florets, cauliflower. I'm just going to see a cauliflower in florets on the floor, cauliflower. So basically, you know, that's all you do. You just keep running through, you know, a palace, and you keep putting these different words in and making images to represent what the sound is. Go through it a few times. Then you need some spaced repetition. So you should, you know, have most of the words in your head. If you've made sort of good associations, there'll be some like odds and ends, like I said, to start off with. That's fine. What you want to do then is you've got to go over it the next day. That's kind of a given. You'll find that generally speaking, your recall will be a lot better than if you were just doing rote learning. So you could do 100 words like this and you'd have a much better recall the next day. You run through it the next day. After that, or around that point, I'd be putting it in Anki, which is this flashcard software that basically tells you when you have new flashcards to review. So, you know, you see a card, it says lettuce on the front, it's in your Spanish deck, and then you have to go, lettuce, oh, what was that again? You look in your brain, you see it on the couch, and you see yourself chewing it, Lady Gaga was there, or regular, you go, oh, lechuga. So you turn it over, you said, oh, that was easy. You click easy, it won't show it to you for a long time. Or, you know, it spaces out how often it's going to show it to you compared to, depending on how you answer. So if you answer hard, it's going to show it to you again that session. If you answer easy, it won't show it to you until the next day. And as that deck gets older, and those cards get more in your long-term memory, that gets spaced out. And so after a while, you know, there's some cards I see and I only get shown them once a year or a few years even. So, but it takes away that panic of, oh, when do I need to, you know, go back over this in order to make sure that I haven't lost my learning. Like I said, you actually don't need to use a memory palace to remember words using these memory techniques. You basically can also just, you know, have a lettuce, see yourself chewing it, go, and then, you know, connect those two things together. It does just make it a little bit easier because you have like all of the fruits and vegetables together in one spot. You carry it around with you all the time. It's like having a little file, and, you know, if you're bored on the bus or something like that, you can go through them all. The second thing is you have an extra association for your brain to help find the right file of information. So that's another reason I like using memory palace for lists of words. Another advantage is we know it's feminine because it's in a feminine memory palace. You can also get away from that without having memory palace by just having a little trick, like if it's a feminine word, you sort of you make that image floating up in the sky. If it was masculine, it's like solid and standing on the ground, or it's fire and ice, or some differentiating little memory trick. The last reason I like a memory palace though is if you are actually sitting in an exam, for example, and you know, for some reason you have to list all of the information that you've been studying. This might not be so much the case with language, but certainly with other topics. You can run through and see if you've missed anything. So you can go, oh yeah, no, I've written everything down. Well, wait a minute, I haven't put what's at the fireplace in yet. So it does help you have like a complete understanding of the information that you've tried to learn. So I do hope that you found this video useful. If you did like it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already a subscriber to my channel, please do so. And that way you'll know when my new videos come out.